everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host Kushalmehra. So finally, after a gap of many months, the MMA podcast is back. Now, you guys are used to watching me discuss MMA with Sham Sharma, but unfortunately, Sham and I were just not able to match our timings. Even today, Sham could not turn up. But then I had reached out to Varun a few months ago. Varun had come on the podcast once before with Sham and I a while ago, and then Sham and I, we basically disappeared. So I reached out to Varun and I said, "Listen, 2024 is starting. I want to continue the MMA podcast now on a monthly basis, like I do the cricket podcast." And Varun said, "Hey, man, let's do it." So Varun, welcome and thanks for joining it.
No, thank you for having me. It's good to be back. I think it's about time there was a big MMA podcast in India, and I'm excited to get this going.
So first of all, how are you doing? Any injuries? How's the training going? Sab lat, tang, sab theek hai?
All good, all in good condition. Since the last time I was on the show, of course, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Before I came on the show, I hadn't even debuted yet, and now I've had about 11 fights. So yeah, it's been a good few kind of years since I last came on.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I remember talking to your mom. She was so
Oh my
angry.
god, my
She
god.
was so angry.
No, I mean both her and my dad. Can you imagine? I like the lectures I got, and they never said it directly. It was always like subtle things, like trying to draw me away from the sport. And I was just like, oh man. And then you came along and you encouraged it. So I was like, okay, at least I have someone on my side, to back me up.
You see, the problem with that is because I finally convinced, especially your mom, about this. You always remember our deal, okay?
I do,
We
I do.
don't do the CTE thing. If we do the CTE thing, your mom's gonna beat me up.
Now she give you CT, so no worries, no worries. I remember the deal.
Yeah, so that's the deal we have. It's my responsibility as far as Varun is concerned. So okay, today's podcast. Okay, we're gonna talk about the recently concluded 297 UFC 297. For people who don't know, it was the main card. The main card, basically, the headline main fight was Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis from South Africa. And before we talk about the specific fight, so Varun, let's start here. How would you rate the card overall in terms of action, fight quality? Because see, there's a very different perspective. I have no training in fighting. Varun is an actual fighter. I'm just a very enthusiastic lover of mixed
Of
martial arts.
Hey, we need that. We need those people in the industry. But I'd say rating wise, it's a bit tough to kind of quantify because you have to look at it from two lenses. I think in terms of the star value, aside from the main event and maybe having your Neil Magny's on, I don't think that it was one of the bigger cards of the year, especially if you look at the upcoming cards. 298, 299, 300. But in terms of the actual fights, I think especially the main event and generally the card, barring the co-main event, it was a good card. I think the level of fights, the kind of back and forth action we got, and we saw a bit of high level grappling, high level striking, scrap. I enjoyed the card overall. So I don't know what do you think.
I enjoyed the card, but if I was to give you an honest answer from the perspective of a fan, so we had a see when casual fans watch the sport, they want to see people beat up. I know. I mean, I'm talking to a fighter, and they're
No, of
like,
course.
"ये मुझे मार खाने के लिए लोग देखते हैं, हाँ भाई तुम्हें मार खाने के लिए लोग देखते हैं और कुछ करने के लिए देखते नहीं है." But I think we had one KO TKO in the main card. We had one KO TKO in the prelim card, and I think the early prelims we did not have KO TKO, but we had three submissions. So
Yeah.
overall, I would say, as far as an entertainment point of view, from a casual fan kind of a point of view, I think it was good, and it is very interesting to see how this goes. But okay, let's get into the main card. First fight, obviously the main event, Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis. Sean Strickland got the middleweight championship by by defeating Israel Adesanya. I mean, to my utter shock, by the way, I did
What a
not expect
performance.
Strickland to. Yeah, but he convincingly defeated Israel Adesanya. But how did you score the fight? Okay.
Okay, so I just want to first of all start by saying I posted two pictures of DDP on my Twitter and my Instagram, right? And the messages I got, oh my god, it's a robbery. I can't believe you scored it for DDP. First of all, I didn't score it for DDP. I actually scored it for Strickland. I thought it was 3-2, right? But to call it a robbery is definitely being harsh. I don't think it was a robbery at all. I had Strickland round one, round two, and round five, and then three and four for DDP. I think round two is really where the sort of controversy lies. I think that's where everyone's sort of debating who won. But yeah, overall, I really do think Strickland won. But I'm not mad at all about uh, the result going to DDP.
I would agree it was not a robbery when the fight ended for the first time. I thought DDP won. But to be
Yeah.
very honest, for to prepare for today's fight, I was rewatching the whole card and I watched the fight again and I shut the commentary off this time. And
Oh,
I
that's
just
so
looked at
important.
the fight and I was just looking at the fight. I don't understand the scoring criteria, is what I concluded after watching the fight. Because okay, if I look at the first round, if I break it down round by round, first round, I think Strickland won clearly. He was
Yeah.
getting the jab going and the deep kick going. That I think would seal the first round for
Yeah,
Strickland.
100%. And he
Now,
didn't. And DDP didn't land anything, right? Like I think he was trying. He was giving him a lot of reads. He was trying to kind of get a lot of, if I remember correctly, the overhands and trying to just rush in. But his Sean Strickland's defense kind of held up.
so I mean, who do you think got the second round? Like, what differentiation do we do from a scoring criteria in the second round?
So that's a tough one, right? Because I think the first criteria, and in fact, I don't think I know the first criteria is always damage, right? And I think when you're watching it, no matter how many times you watch it, you can tell at the end of the second round. Look at DDP's eyes. It is like it is completely swollen as a nearly sealed shut. I would say that based on that, Strickland wins. But then I can also see the argument because if you look at the actual strikes landed, right, it was kind of neck and neck. But in the round, DDP got a takedown and he had some control time. So then the way the scoring works is they look at the damage, right? And if it's sort of neck and neck, a lot of times what they'll do is then they'll go to the next criteria. So in that case, I can see why someone would favor DDP, right? So yeah, I don't know, but for me, I thought the damage was clearly done by Strickland.
Yeah, second round is very hard. I don't know. I thought Strickland, after rewatching it, I would give it to Strickland the second round. 3 and 4 were quite clear, don't you think? I think
Yeah,
3 and 4 was quite clear. I think DDP won them fair and square, right?
exactly. And I think you know what I from a as a fighter, I thought that was great because you could see in the first two rounds he was giving him so much to kind of think about. Whether it was the takedowns, he was giving him different reads in terms of the hands, and I think GFP talks about this fight with BJ Penn and how he just gave him a lot of stimulus. I think that got Strickland eventually when the rounds got a bit you know into later. So I personally thought that's what ended up doing it.
Mm. Yeah, and again, I think the controversy of the match was round 2 and round 5, because that's where pretty much everything gets decided. Now, as far as round 5 is concerned, it does get again, who do you score it for? I scored it for Sean Strickland again. Now, I don't know on what criteria or on what basis the judges gave that round to whom, and again, how were they scoring? And if I remember correctly, there was in the whole match, I think there was just one submission attempt, and that was how many submission attempts were there? Let me check. I wanted to look up the data. I think there were no submission attempts. So
Yeah, I can't
there was
remember any.
Yeah, no submission attempts. I think DDP had like 11 takedown attempts, out of which he landed six.
Yeah,
I think significant strikes, he landed 38.7%, which was 137. Strickland got a lot more significant strikes, 173. He landed 42.4%. And
yeah,
total strikes, obviously, he got 183 vis-a-vis 140. Now, what you have to calculate in the scoring criteria is how much do the takedowns count, because the takedown calculates the control time also, right, which is one of the scoring criterias, right?
exactly. But again, I always go back to this. It's always damage first. You only start looking at the other criteria when there's, when the damage is neck and neck. So, if the damage is like, swinging one way, you don't even look at the other criteria. Because, if you take someone down, and in the case of this fight, DDP, but I don't feel like he was doing any damage. He's controlling him and holding him up. But I don't think he was doing any damage.
So then how did you score round five, in your
I,
opinion?
I give well, I had that Strickland. I thought he did more of the damage, especially as the rounds ended. I thought he landed far more than DDP did. So yeah, that's why I'd say round one, two, and five definitely to Strickland.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say, I think I agree with you. It all comes it all comes down to, I would say, round two. And round two was where I think most judges gave it to DDP. Do you think?
Yeah, but I think that's just because of the takedown. I think that's simply because the takedown was there, and that kind of swayed it. And I think just because in the day and age of the Khabibs and all of these guys, uh, you know, judges look at the takedown and they're like, "Oh my God, this is what's swaying the fight towards the wrestler." But in reality, I think Strickland just did the damage.
Yeah, but overall, I don't think so. It is a robbery or anything. Um, I don't believe I would call it a robbery. I think DDP I think DDP was a deserving winner. If they would have given it to Sean Strickland, I would not have complained. But it's going to be very interesting. And how does a person look after the fight is not a criteria, because maybe
No.
DDP, because of the jabs, was you know getting his both his eyes were messed up. But then they had a head clash, and Strickland was saying
Yeah.
after the fight that head clash really messed him up. And because of that, he had that cut. I think it was right underneath the left eye or something, or above the left eye. And the blood was pouring, and it actually affected his vision. That's what Strickland was saying.
And that can totally change the way the fight goes, because you've got blood running down your eye that completely mess up your vision. You've got an explosive guy like DDP coming at you. It's going to do its damage. So I personally would love to see the fight again. I don't really want to see DDP and Adesanya straight away. I think we need to see this one more time. I don't know what you think.
I would say they will not do the rematch, because if the I mean, considering how the UFC functions, they look at the most profitable factor, and this fight does not make them the kind of money. I think DDP and Israel Adesanya have a little bit of good beef
Yeah.
going on. So I think they might try to book a fight between Adesanya. There are many assumptions here. Adesanya wants to fight uh, again. I mean, I'm assuming he does, but he's taking a break right now, so we don't know when he's going to fight. I think they'll do DDP versus Adesanya again, and maybe the winner of that gets a crack. Then maybe Sean Strickland gets a crack at them. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see an immediate rematch for Sean Strickland. I don't think so.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you in the sense I don't think they'll give it to him. Personally, I would have liked to see it just because I think the Strickland versus Adesanya was a complete shootout. I think it was domination from start to finish. So I'd like to see the rematch personally.
Hey, Varun, you might have to adjust your mouthpiece. I think you have to keep it up slightly away. Yeah, here. Let's
Yeah,
try
is that
here.
good?
Yeah, this is much better because there was a
Okay,
lot of
okay.
there was a lot of
All right, right.
problems. Yeah.
Sorry for the viewers.
No, no, I don't know. It's cracking. Can you try the laptop microphone? I don't know why your voice is cracking using this. Can you try the
That's
laptop
strange.
microphone?
All right, let me try.
Yeah. Let's see. Just select another microphone and let's.
Is that good?
Yeah, it's okay. There's echo, but we can fix it. I don't know why that microphone was not working or something of that sort was happening. I don't know what's
Strange.
the reason for that. It's kind of strange. I don't know why it was happening. But because there was a lot of cracking when you were speaking through that headset. Either
I see. Well, I borrowed
everybody.
this headset from a friend. So if Rack, if you're watching this is your fault.
Yeah.
But no, sorry, back to it. Yeah, no, so I'd personally like to see the rematch, but I can totally see them doing the real African championship, you know?
Yeah, another very interesting bit. I know somebody in the live stream has written this too. So there were 9 Canadian fighters on the card. 2-1. 7
Jeez.
lost. 7
That I
lost.
know. And I think what all the ones that won with the girls and the guys, all of them
Yeah.
were out, right?
Yeah.
And well, who was it? I think Mallet. Yeah, Mallet versus Magni. That was the close one, right? They were neck and neck. I'm sorry, not neck and neck. Mallet was winning that until the last kind of minute, and out of absolutely nowhere, Neil Magny comes, gets him down, and just pounds the hell out of him.
Do you think? Okay, I wanted to ask you this question from a fighter's perspective.
Yeah.
So, how does a fighter gas out? Because it's quite clear that Magny's opponent, Mallet, gassed out. He just did not have anything left. And he was just like, oh, I give up. That's it. I can't take this anymore. Maar de mujhe. That kind of a situation. That's how we casual fans, when we look at it from outside, it was so visible to the eyes of the viewer that when he was fighting, suddenly his entire body just gave up. He just gassed out completely. He could not take it anymore, and he was like, I can't do this anymore. So what happens exactly? Is this like the classic Nick Diaz way of fighting, where they're never striking at 100%? They're always striking at like 60-70%, and there's proper breathing. Because a lot of people don't realize, if you hold on to your breath and you throw punches, even in the air, you can't throw many punches. And that's why they say, you always, when you're punching, you exhale out, right? And that's the technique. And even in a gym, if you're doing drills, they would teach you that. But what exactly happened with Mallet, in your opinion?
So I think it's a combination of factors, right? I think first of all, if you watch that fight, he was the one. They were kind of, in terms of numbers at least, in strikes they were even, but Mallet was the one wrestling, and wrestling is gonna get you, right? Wrestling is always gonna get you, especially if you're offensive. The guys getting back up, the scrambles, and Neil Magny's a vet, right? He's been there how many times now, so he knows how to control his, he knows how to compose himself in those situations and how to kind of last out an entire fight. So I think that's one factor. And the second factor I'd say is, you're in your hometown, you're fighting in front of your home crowd. That adrenaline is going to be pumping. And, as you near the end of the fight, that adrenaline dump is coming. And when that adrenaline dump hits, there's no coming back. That's it. And you get stuck in a position, right? It's like your mind is there. You know exactly what to do. You've been there hundreds of times in training. I can, hip escape, do whatever, but your body's just not responding. So when Neil Magny just starts pounding on him, I think his body just shut down, and that's it. Because you could see after the fight, he's just like, oh, what have I done? He's like, I just had it here. So that was really upsetting to see. So that's essentially what happens.
So it's not that they don't want to do it, it's just that they cannot do it, right?
Legitimately, like, you are there, like, you know exactly what's happening. Even when the guy's punching, you're like, oops, okay, I'm getting punched, I need to get out of here. But yeah, your body's just not giving you the sort of response that you want it to give you. So it's really rough. I've been a victim of that in my own fights. I've been in a position where I'm stuck and I'm like, my God, I literally cannot move here. And, that's that. So I totally feel for Mallet, but I'm sure he'll be back. I'm sure, because you're fighting a guy like Neil Magny, who's been there, done that. He's fought the who's who of the welterweight division, and he took him all the way to the end. I think he'll be back.
Yeah, I think he looked good. And uh, had he not, he had a great record before this. That he had not lost, I think, if I remember correctly, or something of that sort. If I remember it, I think he never lost
Yeah.
too.
I think it was like 10-1 or something like that, which is a great record. I mean,
Oh yeah, 10-1. Yeah, 10-1. So yeah, and one no result, if I remember correctly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he
that's
had a good fight. But now we have to talk about. I don't know how to say this without laughing. Okay, the most boring
exactly.
co-main event in the history of the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
See, do you notice how when we were talking about the fights, I went from that and I skipped and I went back to Neil Magny. I didn't want to talk about it.
No, we
Uh,
have to. We have to. So for everybody who who had to go through the process of watching that fight, it was Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva, and Raquel won in the end through decision after 5 gruesome rounds, not for them but for us as fans. I mean, I'm just kidding, but oh my god, that fight was so boring to watch. If even from a grappling perspective, it was boring to watch. Forget from a striking perspective. From a grappling perspective, it was one of the most boring things that I've seen. Because sometimes, right, when you have people grappling, they were just clinching. Like, I remember distinctly, I think it was round 2. I think it was every round where Raquel would start striking, and it would push Bueno Silva back. And immediately, when you're like, okay, knock her out, and then Raquel would be like, nah, main to jaffi pani hai, and she would just go and clinch her.
yeah, and for
Why?
what? Yeah, for what? And it's really frustrating because every round her coach is like, avoid the clinch. And that's the first thing she does. Beating her up on the verge of knocking her out. And I'm like, come on, man. What are you doing? But it's also strange because Silva had some success with the grappling in the initial 2 rounds, if I remember correctly. Right? She was threatening, but then Raquel was trying to survive with the grappling, like defensively grapple. But then at some point, it looked like both of them were defensively grappling, in a weird way. So it kind of became a stalemate.
Buona Silva was gassed out after round 3. It was so
Yeah,
visible. She was just like, oh, that's all. She just lay down in the last round. She was like, Jo karna hai kar, main nahi uthne wali. Shavasana.
exactly. No, no, yeah. So she basically accepted. I think by that point, you're just like, right, I'm here in the title fight. I'm here to survive. I'll live to fight another day. Um, but it's a real shame because through the UFC embedded, she was hyping herself up. She was so emotional. Had her mom come in, so I was like, oh man, she's gonna come for the kill. Couldn't be couldn't be further from that. So what to say? What to say? I think that Raquel gets knocked out by Pena. Personally, I don't think there
Mm.
was anything there that kind of screams this is going to be a long title run. I don't know what you think.
So, this is very interesting. Who gets the next fight? So, as we know, I don't know if people have heard Kayla Harrison, a 2-time gold medalist judoka for the United States of America, a, a great judoka, probably arguably the best judoka in the history of the United States of America, both male and female, because I don't think so they had a male gold medalist in judo in the Olympics. I think one person has a bronze from the United States of America. So she clearly is at the pinnacle in just judo itself. And now her journey is she goes into PFL. She I think she's only lost one fight in PFL. Other than that, she's
Yeah,
pretty much won everything. She's had one fight in Invicta, if I remember correctly, in the 145-pound category. And now Dana White made this announcement a few days ago where he said that she's going to be coming in the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and her first fight. how about this? I'll play Dana's announcement for everybody else, because why should I say what Dana said? You can hear what Dana said. He announced it on his social media. Dana White, this is what Dana said.
All right, guys, here's another announcement for UFC 300. Holly Holm. She was inducted in the Boxing Hall of Fame in 2022. In the history of the women's bantamweight division, she is tied for fourth most wins, sixth most significant strikes landed, and has the fourth best takedown defense at 78%. Holly Holm is one of the baddest women to ever compete in combat sports, ever. She's fought all the nastiest women in the world in boxing and in MMA, except for one. Holly will be taking on the only person in U.S. history to win back-to-back Olympic gold medals in judo. The UFC has officially signed Kayla Harrison. Kayla's 16-1 with 12 finishes. Her takedowns, her ground and pound are nasty, and this will be the first time she will be competing at bantamweight. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That fight is also at UFC 300.
So this one's going to be in UFC 300. Now, as much as I'm excited about the fact that Kayla Harrison is coming to the UFC, so she's going to fight Holly, and I'm assuming the winner of that fight, if Kayla wins, she gets the title shot. It's quite obvious. She gets the title shot.
I suppose that's true, right? Because she won the PFL. She won the PFL series as well.
Yeah. So now, obviously, Juliana Pena and Raquel Pennington, they're going to fight next. That's obvious. And then the winner of that fight and the winner of Holly and Kayla Harrison, they fight next. But people forget. So for those who don't know, Kayla Harrison, when she was competing in the Olympics, she was fighting in what would be called 171 or 72 pounds category for judo. Yeah. Then when she came to the PFL, she was the brand ambassador of PFL. She was the face of PFL. She drove the brand. She did everything for the brand. And she was fighting at 155 pounds for the PFL. Then when she did that fight in Invicta, she cut her weight down to 145 pounds. And she did that. In fact, the images that we saw, I think they were from that Invicta fight. I could be wrong. She had that one fight, I think last year or the year before in Invicta. That was at 145 pounds. Now, Kayla Harrison, I don't know how many people have looked at her. She is a muscular, well-built woman. She's strong as hell. Your reactions to the announcement that she's going to cut weight to 135 as a fighter, and I want you to take some time and explain to people what weight cutting is. Maybe most people don't know what weight cutting is. You're someone who's gone through it. Tell them what happens.
Right. So, first of all, that's not. And like when Kushal says that she's a big lady, she is massive. Like I watched her fight in London on the PFL card. She like, my God, I couldn't believe that this was like, I've never seen a woman this size. She was jacked out of her mind. So the fact that she's gonna cut to 135 blows my mind. And in terms of weight cutting, so essentially what weight cutting is, right? So before a fight, let's say you fight on Saturday, the weigh-ins are typically held on a Friday, let's say. So 135 pounds, let's say that's the category. You have to weigh in at that. If you weigh in even slightly over, that's it. The commission will either cancel the fight altogether, or they'll fine you, and you have to fight at what they call a catch weight, where the two fighters agree on, meeting kind of midway. So when it comes to cutting weight, it takes time. So let's say I'm walking at, right? So right now I'm at 77 kilos, right? I typically fight at lightweight. So at the start of camp, I'll be 77 kilos. I'll typically diet down to, let's say 75, like 74 and a half, right? Now, I'll stay around this weight, and then the week of the fight, so this is, let's say, 7 days before the Friday weigh-in, I'll start doing what you call water loading. So what water loading is you consistently, I cannot tell you how painful this is. You're constantly drinking water. You're talking like maybe up to 10 liters of water, and you're constantly peeing, right? And at this stage, you're minimizing your salt and carb intake. So all this water you're drinking, you're pissing it out, and nothing's being held because you don't have salt or carb in your system. Then, as the sort of week goes by, you completely eliminate the salt, you completely eliminate the carbs. So your glycogen, so you have no glycogen. So that weight also goes out. And again, you're constant. First of all, you're constantly sweating as well because you're drinking so much water. And yeah, you lose weight through that. You're pissing, and then let's say the Thursday of the fight, you've got about maybe 2.5 kilos left, right? So I'm about 72 and a half. This is the tough part because you've now sweat, pissed, you've done everything, right? So all the remaining water in your system, you need to get that out somehow. So there's many methods to it. Some people will go into a sauna. Some people will fill out a bathtub, right? And then put it with really hot water and you just kind of lie in there for 20 minutes and stare at the wall. Some people put on the sauna suit and you'll see those videos of, they're wearing a sauna suit and they'll be boxing. So there's various methods, but essentially what you're doing is you're sweating it off. You're just forcing your body to sweat off all that excess water. So I'd say, by midnight, like about 8 hours before the weigh-in, you've got maybe half a kilo left. And when you're sleeping, you sweat naturally, and you'll also probably wake up a couple of times to piss. So by the time the weigh-in comes, you're on weight. Now, where I think that, this is going to be important for Kayla Harrison when she comes in is how good her rehydration protocol is. Because when you're rehydrating, some people, they take water and you've been depleted for a good week or 2 weeks. People will rush that water process, but you can't do that. You have to slowly get it into your system. The electrolytes, the salts, the carbs, you have to do it in a sort of gradual basis. You can't just down like 5 liters of water in one sitting and think you're gonna get it back. So that's going to be key for Kayla Harrison if she's going to make such a massive cut.
So what do you think she must be walking around? That's the key thing, right? What do you walk around, and what do you eventually go down to? Because that's what, like, I'm not able to understand. How is she uh, going to manage this?
So I think first of all, what she's going to have to do is she'll have to lose a bit of muscle mass. Like there's just no choice, right? She'll have to walk around. Like let's say she's walking around, let's say 74, 75 right now. She'll have to walk around, let's say 68, 60 to 66 in that range, because otherwise, it's just you're cutting way too much water. You're essentially becoming a prune at that point. So yeah, I'd say lose a bit of muscle mass, and yeah, that's more or less it. That's something I personally have to do as well in terms of my weight cuts. Those are the compromises that I've had to make in the past. So I can imagine that's what she'd have to do.
So just to give people a perspective, I know photographs do not give you the perfect answer. I don't know if you saw a recent photo of Kayla with I think it was Dustin who posted this. The Did he? I think it was Dustin Poirier who recently posted this. Did you check this out? She
Let's see it.
looks relatively fitter here, don't you think? She looks relatively
Yeah.
smaller than her original size. And for people who are like, what is her original size? Let me show
Oh
you,
my
let
God,
me show you her
it's
original
nuts.
size. That This is a massive woman. The first time you're gonna be like, what the hell, Kushal? Ye koi baat hui? But this is the first time I actually found out about Kayla Harrison was you remember do you know something called Impractical Jokers? She was part
Yeah, yeah, of
of a
course.
prank in the Impractical Jokers. That's what I found
Yeah,
out
yeah.
about her.
Really, what was she doing?
She had the thing was, one of the pranks was you have to go and intimidate this woman, and she just keeps picking you up and throwing you in the pool.
Oh no.
I think that it was her. So this is normal Kayla Harrison. Holy shit! Look at that. This is such a jacked woman. Uh, this is
She's
such
not
a
short.
jacked.
No, She's not even short. That's the
She's a
crazy part.
huge woman. Yeah.
My God.
Like every time I look at her and I just think she would kick my ass so badly.
Oh, and you know what? I think that photo is after a weight cut.
Yeah. That's what I'm
So,
saying. This is why I showed this photo. She's so big here. How's she gonna go down to 135?
nah, that like it's gonna be tougher. She definitely. I mean, in that photo you showed with DP, you can clearly tell she's lost a bit of muscle mass, and she has to. Otherwise, going to 135, walking around at 77 is rough. And I not a doctor, so I don't know the biological reasons, but based on my female teammates, I believe cutting weight for women is a lot more difficult as well. So yeah, good luck to her.
So
Really good
so
luck to her.
Dana White said she's already made 135 a couple of times.
Yeah.
So yeah, apparently she's undergone several test cuts, and UFC 300 won't be the first time she's made the bantamweight limit. Now, this is what she had said in the past, just November. I mean, 135 will be a challenge, will challenge me in ways like I'm going to have to lose a piece of me to be able to fight at 135 pounds. Then she said, I think structurally I carry a lot of muscle. Yes, agreed.
Yeah. Yeah,
Already
you
kind
do.
of lean, so I'm going to have to lose muscle. I'm going to have to change my entire lifestyle. I mean, I've already done that to fight at 145. It's crazy what happens when you take care of your body and eat properly and sleep and recover. I was a knucklehead when I was younger, but I have faith whatever is meant will be. Misha Tate has said that she doesn't like the idea of Kayla cutting down and it's not healthy. She has uh, she has advised against it. Misha was not happy with the idea. Where listen, I'm no scientist. Basically, Misha said 135 is going to really suck the life out of her. Um, I
I
mean,
mean, let me ask you this: is Misha Tate saying that because she may have to potentially fight her? I don't know. Or
but
is she
she's
just
gone down to 125, man.
has she?
Mish-
I thought she was
Yeah,
still at 135.
I mean, didn't she try to fight at 135 in between?
Yeah,
She did.
no, that's what I thought. I thought she was 135 until
Or
she went out.
125. She did fight at 125 too. I think she did try once. But I don't know, man. I don't like this idea of Kayla Harrison trying to fight at 135. But here's the reality of the women's
Yeah,
MMA.
where does she go?
There is no 145 or 155-pound division.
No, it's dead, right? I mean, even when Amanda Nunes won the 145, right? I mean,
There was there was no
yeah,
fighter there.
who's she fighting? So that's what I mean. Um, yeah, she kind of has no choice. And that's why I'm interested as well to see because, yeah, she's big, she's strong, like we've mentioned, for the last kind of few minutes. But when you cut, right, you may rehydrate, you might have all the protocols in check, but you're not going to go back to that 100% strength level. You're not going to get your cardio levels up to 100%. So that's going to take its toll. That'll certainly take its toll. So I'm interested to see how she sort of, circumvents that issue. And, she's going up against a Pena or in this case, Raquel Pennington, who are experienced. Again, you have to remember Pena is someone who finished Amanda Nunes. So yeah, that is an interesting fight for me personally.
I think she is where she is because I don't think so. She would have come to UFC. She was making good money in PFL.
Yeah,
Now, PFL also took over Bellator a few months ago.
yep.
So
And got
I
the
don't think
saddle
so.
back.
She would have come. The thing is, Cyborg was just not fighting her. She had no real fight left over there. And then I think sometimes fighters look for legacy. Now, I don't know. I mean, because from what I understand, her and Amanda, they're friends, and I don't know if she would have fought Amanda in any scenario. I don't know, man. All I know is I don't know how she's going to cut to 135. I don't know what the health implications are when she cuts this. And I don't know how Kayla Harrison will be when she loses muscle, because she's not a striker, she's a grappler.
Yeah,
She's a
exactly.
big woman who holds you, and then when she holds you, you tend to stay there. And then she drops you down, and then she beats you up when you're down, and then she chokes the living daylights out of you. Or have I got this wrong?
No, no, that's what I mean, right? She's super strong. But then again, like, we've seen Ronda Rousey, right? She was a very accomplished judoka herself. And this is MMA, not judo. And, Holly Holm knocked her out, knocked Ronda Rousey out. So does lightning strike twice? Does she take out another accomplished judoka? What do you think? Um, Holly Holm is not a small lady herself.
Holly is 41.
Yeah, but she can bang.
Yeah, she's a boxer primarily. People forget she
Yeah.
has a great boxing pedigree. Uh, Listen, if this was at 145 pounds, I would have comfortably said Kayla Harrison wins
Yeah,
hands
exactly.
down.
Exactly.
I don't know what happens at 135. You remember how who was that guy, right? Who fought Henry Cejudo at 125? Forgot his name. TJ Dillashaw. Remember
Ah, oh,
TJ? He tried to cut weight to 125. His weight cut sucked, and then
yes.
he had those steroid abuse issues.
Mhm.
And look what happened to him. All Henry did was strike him once, and TJ was done. So I don't know if this weight cut is going to affect the chin of Kayla Harrison.
That's the thing. There's so many kind of factors that go into it. That's why I'm excited to see it. You know, um, this is far more exciting than what we saw at UFC 297. Let's just just put it
Huh?
that.
No, so to talk about UFC 297, one more. Like, okay, Chris Curtis versus Andre Barrio. Did you see that fight? I
I
like Chris
did,
Curtis, man. He's an exciting fighter.
man. I think people give him too much of a hard time, and I'm not really sure why, because he can fight. The guy can
Yeah, he's
fight.
good.
But he also came out. I don't know if you saw. He came out on, I think it was Ariel's show, right? And he's like, the commentators are biased against me, and
Mm.
they have it out against me. Um, I don't know if that's true necessarily, but I have seen on Twitter and Instagram that people really underrate Chris Curtis. I think he's good. I mean, this is a guy who beat number 7 Brandon Allen, right?
Mm.
So this is no joke.
Yeah. Okay. Now another fight that was good, but people said boring was Arnold Allen versus Evloev. First of all, were you convinced? Did you think Evloev had any chance of winning, or you think it was Allen who won hands down?
I think Evloev won that fight, and he's 17-0. I think he's one of those kind of low key fighters. He even says it himself. I don't know why he says it. He's kind of killing his own stock. He's like, yeah, I'm only winning by decisions. I'm not finishing anything. Like, dude, just keep your mouth shut. No one's thinking about that until you explicitly state it. But no, I thought Evloev won. I was quite confident, and he stepped up. Arnold Allen is no joke. I don't know if you've seen much of Arnold Allen, but he is no joke. So
Hmm.
no, great performance.
Yeah, I did not score that for that bout because I had no idea who won or who did not win. But I want to talk about the prelims. You enjoyed the prelims. Tell me which fights you wanted to talk about, because I know you told me I want to discuss the prelims.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the prelim. And in fact, the one specific fight I really enjoyed was Katona. Brad Katona. I forget the other guy's name. I keep forgetting his name. I have it somewhere. Let me find it. But Brad Katona. The reason I enjoyed this guy, man, people underestimate Armfield. That's his name, Armfield.
Hmm.
People underestimate how tough it is to win the ultimate fighter, right? And this is a guy who's won it twice. I don't know if you've seen much of this guy, but he's
I
legit.
have.
And that
I have.
I thought that was such an evenly matched fight, and it was great. I mean, personally, I thought it was high level, so I found that exciting. What did you think?
That was a good fight. But once again, I think. What did you think about the score?
It's tough. It's a tough. I thought Katona got it, but I wasn't too mad with the result personally, because I think Katona took his time to get going. I think there were times where, usually he likes to go, he likes to kind of dictate the pace, likes to get his grappling going. But yeah, I thought Armfield did a good job in terms of keeping him at bay, and defensively grappled very well. So yeah, I wasn't too mad at the result. Obviously, the end where he was getting ground and pounded by Katona doesn't look good. But yeah, I personally had it that way.
The fight I enjoyed the most was obviously Jillian Robertson, but I really enjoyed the Shirley Sadie Tavares fight. Did you see that? I love that fight. That was so much fun to watch.
You done me dirty here. Okay, so before this podcast, I told Kushal that was my bathroom break. All right, that was so please, he's really done me dirty here. Now, what did you think of the fight? Let's hear about that. What's your analysis?
It was super entertaining. I loved it.
Yeah.
I
All
loved
right.
it.
What about it?
That
What
was
was so great?
I mean, it was a lot of action. I like action-oriented fights. To me, that
Yeah.
was the best part. That fight had a lot of action, and I think Tavares, he's from what I understand he spoke a lot of smack, and
Yeah.
yeah, and
Oh,
well,
fight of the year contender.
no, not really fight of the year
Oh, okay.
contender, but it was fun. I enjoyed that fight. That was the one fight that I enjoyed. But obviously, the best fight was the women's strawweight fight, Robertson versus Polyana Viana, and that was a good win for Jillian Robertson, and one of the rare Canadians to have won.
No, I know, and it was good for her because she's hometown against Polyana, who of course, just for her fighting skills, is very popular. So yeah, no, I thought it was a great win for her, and to finish it the way she did. I don't know if you saw the Instagram, but in the corner, her coach is like live streaming on Instagram, where he's like taking selfies while Jillian was beating Polyana up. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. I clearly am not on Instagram. I mean, I'm there, but I don't even know my Instagram password. So somebody handles it. I've never been on Instagram. I don't understand that platform. Twitter is so overwhelming for me that I'm like, I can't do this. But it's very. Is that allowed?
I don't even know. It was honestly bizarre because I remember seeing after the fight, it's like he's in the corner, and obviously Jillian's getting her ground and pound going, and he's just in the corner with his phone, and he's like talking smack into the camera. I'm like, yo, you're in the middle of a fight. Like, I think you should be paying attention. But yeah, no, hats off to her. She really got it done, and at least gave the crowd something to cheer about.
So I had one question about the Raquel Pennington fight. Now, again, this is because I want to understand a fighter's perspective. What is the role of the corner during a fight? Because every time, and this is not just this fight, it's a pattern with Pennington. She doesn't
Yeah.
listen to her corner. What? Why does this happen so often with her? Like what? Because I don't understand, right? I've never thrown a punch in my life. You've been punched and thrown a punch. So I want to understand, what role does the corner play for a fighter during a fight?
So I think it depends on the fighter. So I'll give you my personal sort of I'll give you my sort of personal experiences. So for me, the first thing is, because I'm grappling heavy, I like someone to kind of slap my muscles and get them going again. So just to kind of get you to breathe, get your composure back, because again, in the heat of the moment, you need someone to zone you back in. So I think her corner was trying to kind of get her to think straight and be like, look, you're about to win this fight, but every time you're about to win, you clinch.
Hmm.
So they're giving her that tactical advice, which, that is also one of the roles. I personally made adjustments accordingly. So yeah, I'd say mostly for like motivation, tactical advice, and just to kind of get you going and to make you remember why you're there in the first place, which
Fair
obviously you
enough.
should.
But why would you think a fighter would not listen to their corner? Like, what happens? Like, they just have a brain fade or something of that sort?
It's weird, I think it's like sometimes you're okay. This kind of happens more in training than in the fight, because in the fight I kind of become a robot. Whatever my coach says, I just do blindly. But I personally think it comes down to the sort of connection you have with your coach. In training, are you used to following their instructions? I've been scolded so many times by my coach. Like, let's say we're in the middle of sparring, he says throw 1-2. He says, okay, switch to a single leg. If I don't do it, sometimes he will stop the training session right there, and he will scream at me and have a go at me. Be like, look, if you don't listen to me here, how are you going to listen to me in the heat of the moment? So personally, I think maybe they've not done enough of those where he's simulating the fight and coaching her in the middle of a fight, and in between rounds. I personally think that could be a factor.
Oh, so you even simulate the period between the fight, the 1 minute period. Fighters even do that. Wow, that's news for me. I did not know this.
No, 100%. Like, we'll go to our corners, to the extent where you're the guy you're sparring with. He'll go to his corner, you're in your own corner, and you'll do everything. Like, for example, there's small things here and there, uh, buzzwords and whatnot that me and my coach have, you know, and even in training, he's used to saying them to me to kind of get me back on track and to get me focused again. He knows what to say, and these are things we've worked out over the years. It doesn't just happen overnight, and you have to do it systematically. So by the time it comes to fight night, he says, okay, let's say the buzzword is apples, right? Just for example. um, yeah, on fight night when he says apples, I know exactly what I'm doing. Let's say the move is number one, number two. When he says number one, number two, I know exactly. It's like almost like programmed into my mind. So I do it almost autopilot. Um, so yeah, I feel like there's a lot of fight. Like, have you seen Khabib and Islam? Have you seen their corner interaction? Like, there's a corner cam in Islam listening to his instructions.
No, I'm not.
Or you've never
I've during a fight I have, but not other than that.
Okay, you really must. That's the best example of this. So you can see Khabib, like, he's shouting what he sees, and Islam is just doing exactly that. And literally, you've seen it from like the point where Islam gets a takedown to the finish. Khabib has called the entire sequence, and it's honestly insane. So I think that if you can get that going with your coach, there's nothing like it.
Hmm. Now, we're not going to talk about the early prelims, but I just wanted to mention that Johan beat Sam Patterson submission, round one in 2 minutes in the women's bantamweight. This fight, by the way, if you guys have not, Jazz the Vicious, she won the fight against Cachoeira by submission in round three. Oh my God, this was an absolute beating
It's
of
disgusting.
of Cachoeira. It was so one-sided. And Malcolm Gordon won in round two via submission. He beat Jimmy Flick. Now, these three fights were actually very good. I think the Fight Pass prelims were even better than the prelim fights, in my opinion. These are the UFC Fight Pass. If you want to watch them, they're available on the UFC Fight Pass. Those guys want to watch. But now, there was so much happening in and around the event itself. I know you co-tweeted something uh, about Sean Strickland when he went off on the media when he was asked about this question. So first of all, now, like, do people realize that I have seen many sports in my life, but
Yeah.
I think mixed martial arts is very unique in some ways that, like, there are some sports that have a very left leaning audience. There might be, but mixed martial arts is quite clearly in America, because see, this sport is pretty much an American sport. Yes, there are European fighters. Yes, there are Australian fighters. Yes, there are Russian fighters. But mixed martial arts, as we understand today, from a purely consumer perspective, money perspective, America runs the sport, and
Of course.
UFC as a promoter runs the sport pretty much. Are there other organizations like One Championship or now PFL and Bellator are together? But 95% of the market share is pretty much dominated by the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Now, in such a case, I mean, Dana White is a very open Republican. He's never hidden it. He's very close friends with Donald Trump. But like, what I did not understand is what the hell was that whole thing where the journalist was asking Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland is going to go off the hook. Where and I don't know if you remember when the whole the last Kobe fight had happened.
Yes,
I was
yeah.
really irritated with Colby Covington making those nasty comments about
Leon.
Leon Edwards's father, and it was nasty. It was, I mean, but that's what I don't know. MMA is when Khabib and Connor fought, Connor
Oh
throwing the
yeah.
dolly on the bus, and then uh, Khabib making nasty comments about Connor's wife and children, and then Connor talking about his wife and children. And I think they only spared the religion bit in that occasion. On that occasion,
Now
religion
the
was spared, but
Connor
huh?
did say call him. Connor did call him backwards and everything for not wanting alcohol. If I remember correctly, right? He did call him backwards, and said his wife wears a bed sheet or something like that. He made comments like that. So there was religion as well. It was not that was not spared. He was quite nasty about it.
Yeah. So I mean, it to me, I'm sharing my personal views. It has come to a point that I have stopped watching pre and post fight interviews of
Yeah.
fighters. I just don't. I because I know that these are people who say weird things. I just watch them fight now. The only person I watch after every pay-per-view, because I want to know, because the man runs the sport, is Dana White.
Yeah.
There's a fixed routine. Dana comes, he gives a press conference. Interestingly, Dana was asked again, where he said, "Free speech, man, free speech, man." Listen, I think Luke Thomas gave the most balanced analysis of this. For people who don't know, Luke Thomas is a mixed martial art journalist. Now, I may not be completely aligned with Luke Thomas's politics personally, but I can tell you, Luke is 100% right that when Dana White says, "Oh, free speech, brother, free speech," it's not about free speech. Let's get real. If somebody was dropping N bombs,
Oh
the
yeah.
UFC would censor it. And you know what UFC censored? Most people don't realize it. When Islam Makachev, or yeah, it was Islam, when he fought the last time, he spoke about the Palestinian conflict. Now, my views on Israel Palestine are very well known. I'm not talking about my views, I'm talking about censorship here. So they let it run in the live stream because they had no control over what the fighter says. But afterwards, that segment was removed. So how can Dana
Really?
White say it's about free speech? It was actively removed.
Oh,
That
okay, I
that bit
didn't know
was
that. But I suppose you have to remember, right? Who runs Endeavor? Ari Emanuel, right? So yeah, I can see why who runs all of these things. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I had no idea about that. That's really interesting.
so how,
But yeah,
how does a fighter handle all of this? Like, it is there no limit to shit talking now?
but how do you limit something like that, right? Because I think it's subjective. It is really subjective because some people are gonna react differently, right? Like Khabib when he was getting trash talked to by Connor, right? You could see it was getting under his skin, but he was still quite stoic in terms of how he handled it. But then you see a Leon Edwards, right? In comparison, he openly talks about how he went, and it deeply affected him, and he was crying. So it's subjective in that sense. Um, yeah, I don't know where you draw the line really. Um, because I mean, I always go back to this, and this is the common argument. You're literally about to take each other's brain cells out. You could potentially kill the guy, right? So at what point do you kind of say, oh, I know you can't say that, but it's okay for you to elbow this guy till he's unconscious? Yeah, that's a really tough one, right? Like look at the Sean Strickland child abuse comments, right? That was a big thing going into this fight. Yeah, I mean, I think the sport, it's not good for the sport, especially publicity wise. But it got a reaction. It got the reaction that DDP would have wanted, right? Strickland, unlike previous press conferences or in previous interviews, he was crying, he was emotional, and he was actually coming out, and he was deeply affected. That's all part of fighting. It's a really tough one, right? Without trash talking, I personally believe we don't get Conor McGregor and Aldo, the 13-second knockout. Like, so it plays a huge part, and I don't know where you kind of draw the line.
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know what Dana White said, I want to play that clip so that people get a perspective. Dana White, this is what Dana White said to the question asked after 297.
About, like, you obviously give a long leash to your fighters about what they can say when they are up there with a UFC microphone, and you are getting into territory of homophobia, transphobia. Like, is there?
I don't give anybody a leash.
Well, I'm saying
a leash.
I'm like
free speech. Control what people say. Going to tell people what to believe. Going to tell people. I don't fucking tell any other human being what to say, what to think, and there's no leashes on any of them. What is your question?
I was asking that question. I'll move on, though.
Yeah, probably a good idea. That's ridiculous to say I give somebody a leash. Free speech, brother. People can say whatever they want and they can believe whatever they want.
Yeah, see, as long as it depends on what they believe. That's my problem. There is no consistency in Dana White's rule because, like it or not, Bloody Elbow did talk about it. Bloody Elbow is a very well-known UFC portal. Again, you might say Bloody Elbow has a left-leaning bias. So be it. It's not about the biases. And this was the report. Islam Makhachev's post-UFC 294 statement censored by the UFC after defending the UFC lightweight championship with a thunderous KO in the main event of UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. Islam Makhachev opted not to celebrate the victory in solidarity. So I'm not celebrating the win today because of the crazy things that are happening around the world. Palestine, we stand with you, he said in a post-fight interview while carrying the Palestine flag. Now, why did the UFC do it? And Makhachev was not the only fighter who had his pro-Palestine statements censored at UFC 294. The UFC edited out a statement of solidarity from British Dagestani fighter Muhammad Mokaev, who called for peace in the region. So my question to Dana White is, what happened to free speech, brother?
That's really interesting. I had no idea about this, That's actually nuts. And that definitely changes my kind of perspective on this. I'm like, man, then you have to have consistency.
That's what I'm saying. It's a matter of consistency. On the conflict itself, my views are very well known. My podcast has covered many things. That's not the issue here. But on the principle of free speech, Dana White cannot give that free speech answer. The UFC actively bans flags. They do. You know why they did? Everybody knows why they did. Again, it was Palestine. Because Bilal Muhammad, an American from Chicago, he always carries the Palestinian flag. They had to ban that. They had to ban.
No, but you see, like, where do you kind of how do you even call that out? Because again, the guy who runs it is Ari Emanuel, right? And I'm sure he's not the only guy in the scene who's openly Republican or openly kind of Jewish. So yeah, where does that line get drawn? Because Conor, people forget Conor McGregor right, in his fight leading up to Aldo, openly said that if it was a different time, he would have walked in on horseback and basically slaughtered everyone who wasn't fit to work in Jose Aldo's favela. Can you imagine him saying that today? Can you imagine what would happen on Twitter? What would happen on Instagram? But I have a feeling if he said that, even now, even today, the UFC wouldn't censor it.
Yeah, I think it's the parent company that's censoring it. Like, this was in 2022. Dana White confirms UFC fighters can't carry flags in the cage anymore. You guys know why?
Yeah,
they, they 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 don't allow flags anymore. And it was, I guess, Endeavor and the ESPN. They didn't want that stuff happening, and Dana White had to cave in. So it's like, my whole thing was, there's no such thing as a free speech standard that Dana keeps talking about, and Dana keeps. Listen, at the end of the day, they run a business. It's the bottom line that matters. Nothing else matters, whether it's Dana White or anybody for that matter. And to say, "Oh, I care about free speech," eh, I don't buy it. I think they care about money, and this sport has a huge right wing base. In fact, they're gonna let Sean Strickland say a lot of things, is because they might think at the end of the day, Sean is going to get them a lot of money, and they don't care. But hey, what the hell? As long as they can give the free speech argument. One more thing. I don't know. Did you hear the news about Nate Diaz versus George Masvidal trying to figure out a boxing match?
yeah. I mean, did anyone actually want to see that? I don't know who wants to see that. I'm not sure. Do you want to see that?
No, the best reaction was Uncle Chael. Uncle Chael doing Uncle Chael things. This was the best comment. This is amongst, I'm quoting Chael. This is amongst, if not the worst idea I've heard in a meaningful period of time. Unless your goal is like Brewster's Billions, to see how fast you can run out of money. The only thing that has kept boxing alive is that you keep finding a bigger fool who's willing to lose money. My fear is that Nate and or George is putting their money in, and I don't want them losing their money. Uncle Chael saying it in the best way possible. I like Chael son, and he has the most hilarious takes on everything.
Oh no, he's awesome. I mean, I always tell people like you need to watch him. He drops a lot of knowledge for free on his YouTube channel. So, sometimes he'll say all kinds of bizarre stuff, but by and large, what he says is very valuable. But no, yeah, I don't know why they would even consider booking that. I mean, if anything, get it in MMA, right? I can still see like a veterans fight, and just for sort of the fans, right? But
Yeah.
boxing, not a chance, not a chance.
So what do you think of Ngannou versus Joshua? You're gonna watch
Joshua,
that?
I mean, I'll watch it. Um, maybe get my Russian links out, but yeah, I don't know. I'll watch it just because I personally thought, and maybe this is my MMA bias kind of coming in. I personally thought he beat Fury. Uh,
I think he did. I agree
you
with you.
think so too, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see how this goes, because yeah, you know what? I think Ngannou's story is incredible, uh, um, and I just think he deserves the payday and he deserves the credit that he's getting. Because to stick it to the UFC, it took a large set. It takes a large set to do that, and to have that kind of self belief that you're going to go out there and find a bigger bag. Credit to him, really credit to him.
Yeah, I think he proved Dana White wrong, which is very
Mhm.
interesting. Very few people actually eventually end up proving Dana White wrong, and Francis Ngannou is one of them. And it was good. It was good to see. Anything else that you thought about the 297 card? Anything from the periphery before or after the card that that you found interesting, that maybe you wanted to discuss, that like I had this question. I mean, as far as Strickland is concerned, do you think he should wait for the next winner of the Adesanya, potential probable Adesanya Du Plessis fight, or do you think he should fight someone anyway and he should move on?
Who does he fight? That's my question. Who does he actually have to fight?
Kamaru Usman?
Whoa. Actually, you know what? That's a good matchup because he's lost to Kamaru, hasn't he? He lost to him at welterweight, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, maybe they have a story there and maybe kind of get that back at middleweight. But then, I mean, I think that's a money fight. But again, you have to remember, see, if Adesanya beats DDP, then Strickland dominated him. So I think he's automatically kind of, inserted himself into the title picture. Then if DDP wins, there's always the case that, oh, I won on one of the judges' scorecards, and I am the former champion, therefore I deserve my title shot. So if I were him, I would just wait it out. I would just see how it goes.
When do you think Khamzat Chimaev gets ready or whatever? Because he's deleted that Instagram image that he had posted. I think he has deleted that. And like, what do you make of his health status? So do you think if Khamzat is healthy, do you think he should get the title shot ahead of Adesanya?
So he's beaten now Kamaru Usman. Who's he beaten in the top 5 or in the top 10 now? If anyone, or he's number 9, isn't he, at the moment, if I remember correctly?
He beat the Brazilian guy, the jiu-jitsu. I forgot his name again, but he beat them. He beat him at 175. 170
Yeah, but he beat
pounds.
him at welterweight. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying at middleweight, who's he beaten that kind of warrants that title shot? I mean, I know people are going to say, oh, he beat Kamaru Usman. Usman's a former champ. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Chimaev isn't a good fighter, because that's obviously not true. But I'm just, to warrant a title shot, I think he needs a couple of more wins, or at least one more kind of top 10 at the very least win. Maybe a Sean Brady, for example, be someone like that.
So okay, let me pull up the rankings for you.
Wait, Sean Brady,
Let's look at.
Sean Brady middleweight, or he's still welterweight? I forgot.
So this is your ranking, right? This is your middleweight ranking right now. It's Strickland, Adesanya, Whittaker, Cannonier, Marvin Vettori, Paulo Costa. Now, Costa and Whittaker are fighting, right?
Yeah.
And Cannonier and Vettori are not going to get a chance. No. Brendan Allen is not going to get it. Dolitza is not going to get it.
Dolitza is fighting this weekend.
Yeah, so he's fighting, next week. So he's not going to get it. Basically, Khamzat Chimaev, Adesanya are the only 2 probable people. If Whittaker beats Costa, Whittaker is in the play again. But
I agree.
He would not get it is because he lost to DDP. So why would he get it?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, why would he get? I think now Whittaker's in this weird spot where he probably has to win another 2 fights to insert himself back into the title picture. Because, yeah, beating Paulo Costa is obviously great, but yeah, if who has Costa really beat recently? He beat Luke Rockhold in a war.
Yeah.
But aside from that, is that really convincing enough to push him into the title picture? Because he got beat bad by DDP. Sorry, Whittaker got beat bad by DDP. So he'd need to win at least a couple of more, in my opinion, to insert him back in that picture.
Before we wrap today's podcast, I want to talk about the heavyweight division. What the hell is happening there? Is John Jones ever going to fight? Has John Jones decided that if it's not Stipe Miocic, I'm not going to fight? And is Tom Aspinall going to sing sad songs for the rest of his life?
In my opinion, and I don't know if you agree with this, in my opinion, Aspinall is the current champion. Look, if Jones is going to sit out there, he literally cannot fight at the moment. So, yeah, as things stand, like, you know, he's the current champion. He's the current best heavyweight in the world. I think he should move on. He should, Jones isn't coming back anytime soon because the injury he got, from at least the video and from how he at least hypes it up, looks bad, right? I think Aspinall should just take on the next guy. Whoever, I think Almeida's fighting soon, no? Jailton Almeida.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who he's fighting.
I think the only option left for Aspinall is Cyril Gahn or Curtis Blades. Who does he fight other than that?
Isn't Blades fighting Almeida?
Yeah, I think so. So what the hell are
So,
they
yeah,
going to do?
I suppose the winner of that, right? Because Blades, I mean, technically beat Aspinall.
Mm.
And then, Almeida is a juggernaut in the division. So, yeah, I think he just faces the winner of that. Because there's no point waiting for Jones. Jones is difficult to do business with anyways. So,
Very difficult.
why kind of entertain it? He's got a belt. And I think eventually, the UK loves Tom Aspinall. And, if he's just more visible, people are going to start recognizing him as the champion.
Fair enough. So before we wrap it up, when's your next fight?
When's my next fight? So my next fight is in May. I'll be fighting in Chhattisgarh.
Nice.
So yeah. So that's the MMA India Nationals. So kind of got back into training this year. I'm in Singapore at the moment. Kind of hit up my ex-coaches, and yeah, camp starts kind of end Feb, early March, and we're good to go in May.
Nice. I look forward to it, Varun. All the best for your next fight. And like I told everybody, this is going to be a monthly feature now, Varun. And whenever Sham can join us, Sham too, we're going to be doing the MMA podcast regularly. I know MMA has a very small fan base in India, but that has never stopped me from discussing things that I enjoy. When I started discussing the cricket thing, somebody was like, "Oh, there are established cricket journalists, but why are you doing it?" Well, we started and barely anybody was listening to the cricket podcast also, but now a lot of people tune in. I am going to do the same with the MMA podcast, which is this is exactly what I told Varun. I don't care how many people listen to it. I love mixed martial arts. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go on doing it. So yeah, every month Varun will be with me. We'll be talking. Obviously, I mean, when he's fighting, I understand we'll have to work around his timing. And Varun, once again, all the best for your upcoming fight. Take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you again next month.
No, thank you very much. I look forward to it. And to everyone watching, thank you for listening. And please, if there's a local MMA show that you can go, and support your local fighter, please go. Please go support the local fighters, because MMA is growing in India, but it still has a long way to go. And it's my dream to see a whole army of Indian fighters in the UFC. So yeah, looking forward to the
Yeah.
next chat.
Yeah, I mean, Anshul, and before Anshul, I think it was what was his name, Bharat Kandhare or something. He
Yeah,
had gone.
that's right.
Yeah,
Bharat Kandhare, yeah.
Yeah, Bharat was there. These were actual Indian fighters, unlike the one championship heavyweight champ who's a Canadian who keeps talking about being an Indian. I got nothing against him, but brother, you're Canadian. You're not Indian. That's
Yeah, and
all
he
I want to
waved
say.
the Canadian flag. So, and
Yeah.
in Delhi, when he won the medal, he waved the Canadian flag. So,
So yeah,
we
he's
remember.
Canadian. Yeah, this guy on the screen, he's an Indian fighter. Anshul is an Indian fighter. Ritu Fogart is an Indian fighter. Bharat Gandhare is an Indian fighter. These are Indian fighters. So support your Indian fighters. Support Varun. Go follow him on Instagram and on Twitter or X, whatever you guys want to call it. The handle is in the description of the podcast. So whether you're listening to the audio version or you're going to be watching the video version, you can go and check him out. As far as I'm concerned, you guys know the drill. Like, subscribe to the video. If you're an audio listener, leave a rating on whichever platform you listen to. And if you really want to go to the next level, you can become a member on YouTube, Patreon, Fanmo, wherever. You can buy the merchandise on kushalmehra.com. We will be doing a monthly MMA podcast from now on. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste. Take care. Bye bye.